First Irving, welcome to day 2 of our Table Talk series. We're trying to send you some daily wisdom about how to approach the coronavirus and all the changes associated with that from a biblical perspective. Today I want to talk about longing and how there are seasons in our life where the Lord allows things to come into our life to remind us that this life is temporary, to remind us that we are built for something greater, that our hearts long for something greater. I was meditating on 2 Corinthians this morning, and Paul in chapter 4 and chapter 5, he's talking about how we have this light of the gospel and how the light of the gospel shines through us as jars of clay, broken jars of clay. And so there are times where the Lord allows us to be broken, allows us to experience the hardships of this world so that through that brokenness, through those hardships, the light of the gospel shines in even greater ways. He says, verse 16 of chapter 4, we don't lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day, for this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look to the things that are seen, or not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. And then in chapter 5, he says, 2 Corinthians again, for we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent where we are right now, this body, this physical earthly experience, we groan. In this tent we groan, longing to put on our heavenly dwelling, if indeed by putting it on we may not be found naked. For while we are still in this tent, we groan being burdened. Not that we would be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us the Spirit as a guarantee. So I'm thinking about my own spiritual walk in this time, and there's definitely a longing in my spirit that I feel growing even greater as a result of all the changes brought on by the coronavirus. I'm longing for the day when this rampant disease will cease. I'm longing for the day when I can begin to experience some sort of normalcy again in my daily life and going to restaurants and engaging with people around me, my neighbors. I'm longing for the day when we as a church will be able to gather together again to worship. There are all these longings that the Lord is stirring within me, longing towards good things that I've enjoyed in this life. But in the absence of those things, which I think in some ways can be seen as an act of grace from the Lord, it's reminding me that even those things are meant to stir greater longings within me. Not just for how those things can be realized here in this life, but how they are supposed to be fully realized in the life that is to come. I'm longing for a greater fellowship than I can have here in this life. In the absence of fellowship here, in this time of quarantine, I'm longing for fellowship with human beings, but even that is pointing me toward a greater longing for fellowship with God, uninterrupted fellowship with God. Even as I long to gather with God's people here today, because of the absence of the ability to do that, that should point me to an even greater longing when I'm not just gathering with First Baptist Church of Irving, but I'm gathering with every tribe, nation, and tongue of believers for all of eternity around the throne of God. And so I just want to encourage you today to think about those longings and to not only let those longings be stirred for a realization here. That the end of those longings is not meant to be fully realized here. Those longings are meant to point you to something greater, something eternal, that God continually reminds us of so that we don't lose our perspective. We are sojourners here. We're We're walking in a wilderness here, and we are awaiting the day when we can enter into the land of promise. So don't miss the opportunity here. Now, there's a lot of negative aspects to what's happening in our world right now. People are suffering economically. People are suffering in their health. But there's also a measure of God's grace here that if we are careful, we can see, and we can have these moments redeemed for God's greater purposes as He shapes our hearts even further for eternity. Let's long to be back together, yes. Let's long for some sort of stability in life, yes. But let's also remember that even those things are temporary. Our hearts are supposed to long for something greater, an eternity with God.